Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Preserving History and Democracy. My name is Cynthia Diaz, Communications Coordinator for the Doña Ana County Clerk's Office. Today we are joined once again by Jacob Slaughter. He's usually behind cameras, but it's nice to see him in front of the cameras.
Yeah. Today,
how are you, Jacob?
We're doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing good. So this is kind of a cool episode. I like doing these episodes.
This is something that we've been doing since I think the beginning of the podcast, just a season recap. I mean, we've had 19 very good episodes throughout this season. Another successful season, a lot of amazing guests, and we've learned a lot this season as well.
Absolutely. It's been another fun season, like you said. We've had some amazing guests who just surprise us every time with the amount of knowledge that they have on these topics.
It's crazy, they all specialize in each of their own topics. They all deliver every time, and we're all left with something that we didn't learn beforehand. So it's really cool seeing how our community comes together. Even if it's just to have a conversation like this where we sit down at a table and, being behind camera is one thing and being in front is a totally other thing. Yeah. But even after the camera stopped rolling, we still hear, stories that the guests bring. And so it's a really awesome time to connect with the people from our community that love to, talk about history.
I agree. So let's get into it. Do we want to talk about the first episode we did this season?
Yeah, so the first episode, we went on the road. And we went to Nopalito's restaurant.
I always love an on-the-road episode because we get to these guests treat us so well. So Nopalito's was a great one.
It was really great. We got to talk to Victor, and he is a part of the restaurant. And, he was even talking to us about how it was one of the first Baptist church in Mesquite Street.
And that church was a church that a lot of people with the Bracero program went to, which was from another season, too, that we talked about the Bracero program. So it's cool seeing how this all kind of just loops into each other and how the history of Doña Ana is just so interwoven into each other.
Yeah, we see a lot of loopholes here, and it's really, really cool because then, we make connections like that.
Absolutely. So we're going to insert a clip from that episode.
This building here, Nopalito's Restaurant on Mesquite, used to be a First Spanish Baptist church.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's get into the history of this building.
This church was created for los Bracero program.
Okay.
From when they were coming from Mexico over here from World War II, when all the people left and they couldn't work on the land, and they brought a grant, and they brought every Bracero program came on. But
so I know, I don't know if we've done an episode on the Bracero program, but for those who don't know, like Victor was just saying, the Bracero program, it was started in World War II, and so soldiers were going off to either the Pacific or Europe to fight, and the United States needed workers to come and work fields, to come and do industry and things like that, and so Mexico did what Mexico does, and they worked, and they came and they helped us, and so the Bracero program, I know that's how my mom's dad came over, and he came to work the pecan farms.
Yeah, a lot of people came by, and they were working in the farms and everything, and they brought the pastor from Chihuahua to minister to them, and this was the only Spanish ministering for Baptists and I just found this out 2 years ago that pastor used to put a piano in back of an old truck and used to go to the fields and tell the Braceros, don't spend your money on beer and wine, save your money, take it back to Mexico and go to church.
Wow.
But they built this church, and that's how we end up having it, because they sold it. They sold it, for my dad to buy it. And my mom was real critical. I don't want to put a restaurant in the church. And my dad goes there. They want us to buy it. Just buy it. And my dad bought it for $10,000.
Oh my gosh! Wow. I'm sure at the time it was a fortune.
Yeah. It was a fortune. We didn't have the money. My dad didn't have the money, and my dad had to go get the money from First National Bank to see if they'll lend him the money. Yeah. And the first time he went over there, they said no.
Wow.
And he went back to the restaurant that week. I don't know the time and the day, but Mr. Payton, the president of the bank, went to the restaurant that day and saw my dad and told my dad, you need a bigger place. Yeah, all my employees, all my workers are coming over here to eat. You need to have a bigger place. Why don't you go to the bank and borrow some money? And that's when my dad said, I did. And you guys said no.
I love that.
And he said, you go tomorrow and we'll get you money. Wow. Yeah. And he did. And that's how we ended up buying this building.
Imagine. Wow, that is so amazing. He was like, I did go to your bank and you said no.
He's like, all right, try again tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll go. We'll try. I'll be there tomorrow.
That's amazing.
There's a story about that.
Yeah.
And he went over there and he got the money because he was afraid that his check that he wrote out, he didn't have money to pay for it yet. and it was gonna go through, and he was afraid. I need that money, and they let him the money. Mr. Payton helped out, and he intervened, and he got the money.
Excellent.
Alrighty, so the second episode we did this season was a Romance at the Rotunda recap, and I just love Romance at the Rotunda. It's so much fun.
This is an event we do every year, on Valentine's. I think this year it was not on Valentine's, it was Friday the 13th. We had 3 locations where couples were getting married. Another big turnout. It was another successful event.
Absolutely. I love it so much because people are they bring their whole families, they get dressed in their white dresses and their suits, and it's just so cute to see these couples just celebrate their love.
Being out in the action, taking photos and videos. There's so much memories being made at that same time.
Absolutely.
And, one of our sayings is our office is the start of many important, milestones in people's lives. Getting married is, just as important.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think it was just another event or another successful event, like you said. So I'm excited for next year.
Yeah.
They always come so quick. So.
We're already halfway in 2026.
I know.
So
it's already time to start planning.
Yeah, it's already time to start planning. Episode 3 was in Nakayama Archives, and we had Peggy and Jennifer.
And I just love seeing the pictures from this episode as well, because it's just, it was so cool getting to see the agriculture, how it kind of started here in the Mesilla Valley.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool episode. Peggy was just so sweet and had some amazing stories about her family, and Jennifer just had the great archives to back it up.
She got to go back to where her family roots, where they used to live,
which is so cool.
That was really cool to hear about that, especially how they came to Doña Ana right after.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and put a clip from that episode right now. I'm curious, what were they farming exactly?
Well, it changed over the years. It evolved greatly over the years. When they first started out, they had at the former Shalem colony, they rented I think it was about 20 or 25 acres. So it was not a very big farm, but they raised a whole variety of vegetables. And my grandfather identified himself on his letterhead and everything as a truck farmer, because they raised these vegetables. They took them to the local market. As the farm got a little bit bigger, they sold at the wholesale market in El Paso, which meant every morning at 4:00 somebody had to drive the truck to El Paso to take the load of vegetables. But early on, one of their main crops was sweet potatoes. And I don't know why that was a chosen crop, but from the very beginning, the recurring themes for quite a long time. First it's sweet potatoes, and then it's lettuce and onions. And lettuce and onions occur, up until the end of the story. But a whole variety of vegetables. And one of the documents is from 1930, by which time they had moved over. Well, by 1930 they had bought their first farm, so they were living on their own farm, but they were still growing a variety of vegetables. And there is a farm census that went along with the 1930 census, and I have a copy of that.
Wow.
That shows what they had. And so there were sweet potatoes and lettuce and onions and asparagus and cabbage and a whole variety of vegetables, and cantaloupes as well.
Cantaloupes.
And then how many horses, how many cows, how many chickens they had.
Wow.
So there's all this information about what was actually on this farm.
And that was part of a census?
Yes, and
Wow.
apparently the way it worked at that time, for this farm census, they sent you a form, like a draft, that you filled out with all your information, and then the census taker would come to interview you, and then the official and then fill out in person the official census.
Wow.
Alrighty, our 4th episode was a county leadership episode. We interviewed Commissioner Manuel Sanchez and Christopher Shaljo Hernandez, and they are so fun. I love them.
Yeah, we got to hear, an inside scoop of, how they served our community. You know, we have the commissioner meetings, you know, every other Tuesday. And so we got to take a deep dive into the process and, you know, how they serve the residents here in Doña Ana County.
Yeah, it was a great episode getting to just hear what they have planned for this county, how far they've come since they started, where they're at. So we'll go ahead and insert a clip of them talking about what they do for the county. What role do county commissioners play in supporting elections?
I'd say the big one, the two big obviously are the budget. I think we work with the county clerk and approve the budget that they need to be successful. So I know working with Dr. Askin the past few years, I think that's been a big piece of it. We're the ones that approve the electoral results. Dr. Askin and you know, and the whole staff put a lot into what they do with an election and the integrity that goes into it. And I think that's where the other part that comes in is kind of the unspoken part, unofficial part, but give that support because, you know, I know that's one of the things that I always appreciated when I first came in was, you know, you all took me in, showed me this is how this happens. This is what the machine looks like. This is the processes we follow. And you all educated me. And so I appreciate it because like I said, we can advocate on your behalf, but I think that's how we generally as commissioners can help.
Commissioner Sanchez did a great job at kind of explaining exactly what we as commissioners do when it comes to that, but I'm going to take it in like a little bit of a different way. Besides you all being like the front line of elections, defending it day after day, even when there's not an election going on, you all are in the trenches getting it done. But in recent history, we've actually had in the state of New Mexico, where county clerks and the Board of County Commissioners in their county are actually at odds over the election. And it literally winds up in a very public battle. And I can't really imagine not, you know, being there hand in hand with our election officials for any of our elections. It doesn't show trust in the system, and actually it kind of does exactly the opposite. It would make me not want to go out and vote. It would make me not want to participate in the process. So something that we're able to do is, you know, ask those important questions, get the answers, take it to heart, and then be able to feel really great about the decisions that we get to make when the election results come in front of us and we get to send it on up to the Secretary of State. So I just want to say thank you to you all and the staff, because being able to be there, answering the questions, showing us the ropes, doing the work, you know, every time I get up there and I hear you all talking to us about the election, I have so much confidence that it's being done. And that way I can share that confidence with constituents when they call, with people when I used to work as a voter protection agent during election seasons. And I always knew that the people that were there at the voting location was doing a great job. I believed them. I trusted them. They would talk to me. It was never this like heated battle, and it always felt good. So I think that's something that we also get the privilege of doing, is really elevating the work that you're all doing to say, hey, like, we know that Doña Ana County puts on good elections.
For episode 5, we had Richard Meltzer join us via Zoom to discuss the Fred Harvey houses. And we actually had one here in Doña Ana County.
Yeah, it was, I think, in Rincon. So it was pretty cool getting to hear about something that's so legendary in the United States and how it was part of Doña Ana.
Right.
So.
And not only was this part of Doña Ana, but this was across, I believe, 13 other states.
Yeah.
One of the longest railroad, lines of... at that time.
And I loved how he had been to like so many of them, and he was just like kind of like telling us about the differences in these Harvey houses and stuff. So it was pretty cool to get to hear just how this historic thing was like part of Doña Ana. So.
Yeah, and I think it was the start to to revolutionize what there is today. Obviously we have roads and stuff, but it all started with the trains. So.
Kind of seemed like it was a good insight onto how like the restaurant and hotel kind of management side started. Like he was very good at marketing already.
Oh so. Yeah, he was Fred Harvey. He was a genius.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and insert a clip of that episode right here.
How did he expand beyond just the restaurant?
He had so many restaurants. At the peak, they had 84.
Wow.
Wow.
It was the restaurants, but then they branched out into hotels and resorts. So they became destinations in themselves. Then they also had destinations, especially at places like La Fonda, not along the railroad tracks. Grand Canyon, you had to have a spur to get up there, so that it became very classy resorts. And then you might have heard of an operation called the Southwest Indian Detours.
No, never heard of that.
They were an operation to attract people off the trains and have them travel through detours. In other words, beyond what they had originally planned in their trips.
Little sightseeing on the way.
Yes, exactly. And they were brilliant at this. They were brilliant at everything they did with the tourists. They would put attractive young women, not Harvey girls, but specially trained young women on the trains, and they'd wear Southwestern costumes, clothes, lots of turquoise. And of course, that would lead to conversations with the tourists, and the tourists would want to know more about the Southwest, and then they convince them to get off and take these trips. The trips varied from just a day to as long as you wanted. You could rent out one of these cars and women to be guides, and they went everywhere. But how clever! They usually wound up at the Harvey House overnight.
Oh, how
Okay.
convenient.
Yeah. So they go from Las Vegas to La Fonda to the Alvarado. It was good for business. It was great for business.
So speaking of the kind of railroads here in Doña Ana, our next episode was actually about the Las Cruces Railroad Museum, and that was featuring Kyle McGrowan. So that was a really cool episode too.
Yes, that was a great way to go from the Harvey houses to the Railroad Museum.
Absolutely, and we actually did another field trip for that
Yep.
episode.
We actually went to the museum,
Yeah.
great hospitality. It's definitely a museum you should check out here in Doña Ana County. I think there's a lot to learn about it.
Yeah.
I mean, even just seeing the trains go by,
It was
you
pretty
can never
cool, huh?
be too young to watch a train go
It's
by.
still exciting.
Yeah.
And he kind of examined the importance of preserving transportation history and sharing stories for future generations. So
So here's a clip from the Las Cruces Railroad Museum episode.
can you tell us about the history of the train coming to Las Cruces instead of Mesilla, which was a bigger town back then?
The story I have is that when the line out front was built in 1881 from El Paso to Albuquerque by the Santa Fe, they made an offer to the people of Mesilla. They said, if you give us space for a railroad station and a yard, we'll build our line through your town. Well, the answer was probably akin to sticking your thumb in your nose and wiggling your fingers. They didn't want the railroad for whatever purpose. And the people in Las Cruces, which was much the smaller village at the time, bought a chunk of land from the local rancher and said, okay, here's space for your yard, your station, we'll take the railroad. Well, shortly thereafter, Las Cruces lost the county courthouse because it wasn't on the railroad, and Las Cruces was. And of course, Las Cruces is going to grow for that time and place almost exponentially in population. And next time you're out here by the railroad station, almost everything on Las Cruces Street between Alameda and the depot is the first subdivision built by the New Mexico or Las Cruces Land Company in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, and you'll see the architecture change because of the railroad.
So our next episode that we did for season 6 was the 100th episode.
Wow. 100 episodes. Wow.
Isn't it crazy? When we
from-
first started, I don't think we thought we would get to
No,
100
so,
episodes.
it's crazy because when I first came into the clerk's office as an intern in May of 2023, I just started filing, doing some stuff with recording and filing. And then all of a sudden, we're doing a podcast. And look at us, 2026.
I know.
Almost 3 years to the day.
Yeah.
Or around this time. I don't know exactly when our first episode came out.
Right.
But I just remember, the idea that you guys had for, building a podcast.
Yeah.
And, we are doing it.
Absolutely.
100 episodes.
It was definitely a team effort. I remember Caroline kind of telling me, I came from the radio world, so I think she was like, oh, we should do a podcast. And I was like absolutely on board for it. I thought that would be great, but it was definitely a team effort. I don't think we could have done it without the team that we've had. So.
And, going on, it's more than a podcast. We are sharing the history of Doña Ana County. We are bringing on these talented and incredible, historians, authors, people that dedicate their time to research these topics just to share with the community.
Yeah, it's been great to hear people from our community, their stories, everybody coming from different walks of life. So it's been incredible to hear just how historic this county is and hear firsthand accounts from people, and these stories are passed on from generation to generation. And I've loved seeing people's comments on our Facebook pages or YouTube pages about having a grandparent who was there for that situation or for that, whatever episode that we're doing. So I think it's really cool to see these stories, and I really hope we get even more guests and more stories, because it's just really cool to amplify these voices.
I love doing the podcast. It's something I look forward to. Our next episode is the 2026 primary election filing day. So 2026, we have 2 elections, our primary election and a general election. And so just recently, it was election day, very busy, high turnout. I think especially for a primary election with the semi-open, with it being semi-open now, independents can now vote for Democrat or Republican. So it was really interesting to see how much candidates were filing and the turnout for the election.
One of my favorite things to do in these episodes too is talk about the election, and I know it can get kind of redundant for us. We keep talking about the same stuff, but it's so important to just share with the community this information, because we want people to go and share their voice, and that's how you do it, is you go vote. So
right.
I love these election episodes because I think it's a great way to
we're the Preserving History and Democracy podcast. So if we have this platform to utilize, we want to get as much information out as we can.
Absolutely. So the next episode was the Taylor-Mesilla Historic Site featuring Emily Wilson, another on the road episode.
Another field trip. It was a little challenging for me trying to set up in such a small room, but more importantly, it was such a historic place. And I mean, wow, there's something everywhere you look in that building. Yeah, and then, growing up in Las Cruces, I've always heard about the Taylor family and how influential they were. And I never really, thought about, that the home that they grew up in and everything until we did this episode, and I was like, why haven't I been here before? This is so amazing, so historic. There's so much history behind it. That place has been there since Mesilla began. So same case with me. I go to Mesilla often, and never once had I thought about the building. About it, but I mean, to learn about when you walk in, there's so much, I guess, activations and things to look at in there. Learning about Paul and Mary, the Taylor family, and their contributions to Doña Ana County. I mean, they made such a lasting impact in this, from teaching to, helping the community out. I remember Emily, who was our special guest on the episode, talking about after, Sunday church, they would bring people in their house, to feed. They were just such a loving family, a busy family as well at that. It's crazy, they were influential because they did so much for our community, but they also just were amazing people, it seems like. So I love hearing stories about the family, because it's just, they're so influential to this day. Exactly. So it's awesome. Their impact still lasts to this day. So here's a clip from the Taylor-Mesilla episode featuring Emily Wilson.
There's J. Paul Taylor, right? An educator, was teaching in schools, then moved on to being a legislator. I have heard him be referred to as the conscience of the legislators. And he did a lot of amazing things, encouraging education for Spanish and English to make students bilingual so that they can communicate with the borderlands. I mean, that is something that I strongly believe we should do more widespread, but I'm going to take a point of privilege here because I can.
Now, my mom was actually the second bilingual class in the state.
Really?
Yes. And so she knew Mr. Taylor. He was one of her teachers, and they actually got to go up north and they put on like a cute little show and like dance like Ballet Folklórico, and then they also did like modern dance and stuff like that. And they stayed at either an old building, and I'll have to ask my mom, either an old building or maybe it was like in the caverns, like maybe they had gone to Carlsbad or something like that. So they had one room where all the little girls were staying in, and they looked up in the middle of the night and they saw these eyes looking at them. Oh my gosh. And it was bats. And so, of course, all the little girls just start screaming, and Mr. Taylor busts into the room to see what's wrong. And so that's one of the memories she has of Mr. Taylor. Yeah.
That's so cute.
But my mom's like getting that bilingual education. They actually, my mom's class they traveled in the class together between elementary all the way through middle school. And they had the same teacher every year. And so they all grew up together, and they all had that same teacher.
That's awesome.
That's really
And half
cool.
the day was, half the day was English, half the day was Spanish.
I love that. I love that they weren't trying to be like, no, you have to only learn English. They were able to learn in Spanish as well. And keep
exactly.
their beautiful language. So
Yeah.
awesome.
He did a lot of work to help support indignant communities as well. So just all around, always doing great things to help the community. And then there's his wife, Mary Daniels Taylor, incredible historian. I'll give the gift shop a shout out. They do sell her book. And so it's Mesilla, A Place as Wild as the West Ever Was. But she was a historian. She looks at the local history, but she was also a photographer. So while they were owning the building for a period of time, the Barella store, what we refer to as the Barella store, was actually her studio. And so she would do her printmaking up there and process her photographs. If we look around all throughout the house, you'll find different pieces of hers. She also was such an influential historian that she has an entire archive at NMSU and they told me it is enough film and materials to cover like 4 football fields.
Wow.
Yeah, to run the length of like 4 football fields. So she was just doing a lot always, and raising a family of 7 children, and cooking dinner. They were such a kind family that, they'd go to church on Sunday, and by the time that they had walked from St. Albino across the street, they had collected a gaggle of additional people to come join them for Sunday brunch or for dinner. And that's, I think that's a good testament to the kind of people that they were so busy and doing so much, but they always made time to take somebody in off the street and have dinner.
So our next episode was a visit to the Secretary of State's office, and that was featuring Mandy V. Heel, which you didn't get to go to that one, unfortunately. But it was so cool getting to visit the Secretary of State's office. I mean, obviously our office works so closely with them.
Right.
And so getting to actually see where everything happens was really cool.
I can't imagine. Even just, hearing about it during the editing process.
Yeah, you got to edit it. You didn't get to go, but you got to edit, so that's fun.
But, it's so interesting, obviously, we're in communications, and we always hear Secretary of State, Secretary of State. They are such a big part of the work that gets done, especially during elections. They overlook all the counties, so it's really important to know what their role is as well.
I love getting to hear what Mandy, how far they've come, because she's been there for like 11 years.
Right.
So she's been there for a long time. She's actually known Janice, our election supervisor, for such a long time.
Janice has been in the election realm as well for a long time.
So it was cool getting to hear how far they've come since they've been there. So it's really cool to hear too what they want for the future of elections in New Mexico.
Exactly. That's what I was going to talk about. The what's next for election was one of the conversations, and we will put a clip of that right now.
You mentioned modernization in elections. Where do you see election modernization moving toward in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow. If I had a magic wand?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great question, Janice. I mentioned earlier I get to represent New Mexico on other national boards, which is something I really appreciate. I get to learn from all of my peers across the country. And I will share, it's not partisan. When you're talking about election administrators, we really are just talking about how to get the work done and how to do it better. And so I've learned a great deal from some of those peers. And so some of the ideas that I've gathered are really tied to outreach. So I definitely appreciate what you all are doing and trying to get information out to the public. I don't think that's something we all were thinking about before 2020. We kind of just did our work quietly, and I'm happy to see kind of some spotlight put on all of the great work that's being done in election administration. But as you all know, that comes with some challenges. So I think outreach is really critical, and figuring out how can we get out to voters that or even individuals that aren't registered. How can we get participation to expand here? We have a lot of rural and Native communities here. And so sometimes some of these great efforts towards technology, they can't always take advantage of it. And so figuring out how to reach not only, the majority of the voters we serve, but the minority also. So looking at language barriers, I would really like to expand ways that individuals that don't, English isn't their first language or it's not their preferred language, that we can really provide some additional resources to them in that mechanism. So I think voter outreach is huge. There's always new technology. And we're always looking at maintaining security. So I think we're always going to have security at the forefront, looking at ballot drop boxes. How can we do that differently? How can we look at the new technology? What are ways we can get information out to the public? So not just about participation, but once it's all said and done, hey, what just happened? How can I understand what's happening in the background so that I feel really comfortable and confident? And so how can we tell our story in a way that is easy to understand? Because I think elections can be complex if you don't work with them every day. There's some nuances that, the average voter is not going to need to kind of burden themselves with. But how can we put that out in a way that they can easily understand it? And how can we engage younger voters? I have a daughter, I have young nephews, they're amazing. They learn a lot from me because of my profession, but not everybody has that same experience. And so I think it's really critical that we get the next generation participating, believing, and helping us learn how to serve them.
Yeah.
All right, so for episode 11, we had one of our most popular guests, Mr. Dave Thomas, historian, author, and
the legend.
This guy knows so much stuff.
I'm always surprised at how he just knows dates at the top of the head. We'll be like, well, when did this happen? And he'll just know it. And I'm like, I can't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So the topic was about the hermit, the journey of Giovanni Maria de Agostini. And he has a book about it, which it's so amazing. I've been trying to read it here and there. It's hard because I have like 40 things on my reading list right now. But it's been amazing to just hear about somebody that was such a legend. He was a man that traveled for 21 years across South America, different places in Europe, and eventually made his way here to Little Doña Ana.
All on foot, too. I think there was a few where, he traveled by boat, but it was mostly all by foot.
Yeah.
That was one of the most interesting things I've ever heard from doing the podcast. This guy was a traveler, and he came down to Doña Ana County, and, basically people would look out for that fire.
Yeah, it was crazy hearing about the story about when they found out he had passed away.
And one thing that was interesting, after we recorded this video, I went on a field trip with my little brother.
Yeah.
And I got to see the actual
you got
cave
to see his hideout spot.
He was staying in. And, to think about, that was a couple hundred years ago is insane.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what a leader and a traveler he was.
It's been great to learn about this story, and we'll go ahead and insert a clip from that right here.
So when did he start showing signs of wanting to be a hermit?
Well, at the age of 17, he had a vision, and he saw light that was coming out of the sky. And he interpreted that to mean that he should leave home and travel and pursue knowledge about his Christian faith. Now, he does say in his memoirs, which I found his memoirs, that at the age of 5, he already was inclined to a solitary life.
Wow, 5 years old.
Yes, but at 17, he left home. And, of course, he never returned. After he left home, he traveled around Europe for about 20 years. And he visited all the major pilgrimage sites in Portugal, France, and Italy. And he stayed in various monasteries. He studied. He learned to read and write well, which he probably knew before. But he learned multiple languages. But In 1838, he joined the Abbey St. Anthony, and that's a Maronite Christian monastery. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they did not accept the authority of the Pope. The Maronite branch of Christianity is primarily in Syria and Lebanon, even today. There's only maybe 2 or 3 million of them. And it was started by St. Maron in 350. So it was very similar to Catholicism, but did not accept the authority of the Pope. Well, about in the late 1700s, the church decided they would accept the authority of the Pope. Once that happened, the Pope allowed them to open a monastery in Rome, and that was late 1700s. So that's the monastery he joined. So he became a Maronite Christian. He joined that monastery, and then a few months later he left for the New World.
Alrighty, so our next episode was the New Mexico State Archives, inside the New Mexico State Archives with Elena Perez Lozano and Jonathan Pringle. Which
this was another
so cool.
field trip for you guys.
Yes,
right
another
here.
episode you didn't get to go to. We kind of did a field trip to Santa Fe, and we visited the Secretary of State's office, and then we went to go visit the New Mexico State Archives, which was incredible. It's so huge in there.
I'm sure it was a lot to take in, going from Secretary of State to State Archives.
It was so cool getting to, I mean, I don't go to Santa Fe often, so when I do, it was pretty cool getting to see these places that we work so much with, because Angelica works with them a lot to, archive our stuff, and we always communicate with them. If somebody's looking for something, we can say, well, let's look in our vault. If it's not in our vault, it might be at the State Archive.
I remember hearing during the episode how large their archive is. I mean, we have our vault and we have our archives, but I'm sure it's compared to nothing from what they have.
Yeah, no, it was huge, and they have stuff from all over the state, stuff that happened before New Mexico was even a state, which is incredible. So it was really cool getting to see. We got to see some voter rolls in there from 19.
I know that was Caroline's favorite thing to look at.
Yeah,
it's so crazy how we've gone from paper to
technology.
Exactly. That you literally in that episode you can see the evolution of technology in there, which I thought was pretty cool, and a bunch of other cool stuff.
They found some really cool stuff from Doña Ana to pull out and show us in the episode, and I got to work behind the cameras for that one, but it was really cool getting to hear their stories.
This is probably one of my favorite finds from today. This, if you can see, Cynthia, is from what did we say?
1868.
1868. These are the voter rolls from 1868. They're incredibly beautiful. The penmanship is fantastic. This one specifically is from precinct number 5.
And our precincts change.
Yes.
So precinct number 5 today is not going to be precinct number 5 in the 1800s.
Not at all. But it's quite beautiful. It's written in Spanish. Again, New Mexico did not become a state till 1912. And so this is one of them. And we're going to show you another document in here as well. Grab me that next precinct.
This is precinct number 8.
All right. Precinct number 8. I love that it's on blue paper. And I'm going to go ahead and open this here. And again, this is the voter roll. And so it's in alphabetical order. You can actually go through and see all the names. Of course, many Spanish. It's all in Spanish. Beautiful names, beautiful penmanship.
Episode 13 featured Jennifer Kleitz with the Doña Ana County Water and Soil Conservation District, and we got to hear how small actions have a lasting impact on projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved hearing about the Neighborhoods program that they do. They get to do a lot of stuff with schools, like planting trees and all that cool stuff. So it's great to hear what a small local government, like you said, what they do for our county and what they do for the state in general.
Even going behind the scenes, she highlighted the important role of how grants can help, the county.
Yeah.
And, making sure that we have water security and all that good stuff. So it was good to hear from someone that works on that side of the force.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and share a clip from that right here. So how and when were soil and water districts founded? Is there kind of is there a president, a chairperson? How does that work for you guys?
Well, actually, it started in the 1930s.
Okay.
There was a farmer in Oklahoma, I think. On our website, we have a video about the story of Hugh Hammond Bennett. And he recognized what was happening. You've heard of the Dust Bowl days,
yes,
right? You heard about what was happening with that there was a drought And it's not unlike what's happening to us today. We know our March winds. We know what happens out
Right.
in Deming. You can't even drive because of the dust, right? And so he recognized what the problem was, and he went to Washington so that they would put a program together to help producers put together practices and programs to increase soil health.
Okay.
And that was called the Soil Conservation Service, which is now NRCS. Now, one of the things that's really interesting, he timed his meeting before the committees in Washington when he knew that a dust storm was coming through.
Good
and
timing.
halfway through his presentation, it almost went entirely dark
Wow.
because of the dust storm that was going through in Washington that day.
Wow.
So Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the one who signed the bill into law, creating the Soil Conservation Service, which then went down to all the states, and every state has a soil and water conservation service, soil water conservation districts. And New Mexico has 47 soil water conservation districts.
So episode 14 was the Doña Ana County in the Texas Tech Archives, and that one featured Kylie Kincaid, which you guys met at a archives fair that we had.
Archives Bazaar,
Yeah.
hosted by Dennis, actually.
Yes.
Now, when I first heard that Texas Tech was going to be here at the Archives Bazaar, I'm a football fan, just a little inside secret. So I was like, wow, Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I wonder what they have about Doña Ana County
Right,
over
like
here.
how does this even correlate?
Yeah. Sure enough, they had a lot of stuff, especially at the Archives Bazaar. But Kylie joined us via Zoom, and she brought some insight to some documents that she had pulled aside from our county.
Yeah, which is really amazing that there's even like a correlation between Doña Ana and Texas Tech. So that was another amazing episode. She had so much knowledge, and she kind of spoke to us about the importance of preserving things and archiving. And so it was a great episode to hear just her insights and how they do things at Texas Tech compared to Doña Ana.
Yeah,
So.
and I thought it was cool hearing that Texas Tech or another county from Texas had stuff about our county.
Yeah.
With their archives. It's all cool. It's all history.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and share a clip from that right here.
Can you tell us a little bit about this J.T. Sprague?
Yes. So he, his full name was John Titcomb Sprague. He was born in 1810 in Massachusetts. For most of his life, he was a soldier. He kind of entered the Marine Corps in his 20s. And then from there, he participated in the Mexican-American War and the Second Seminole War, both of which kind of had him stationed around Florida interestingly, to sort of keep an eye on Native Americans in that region. And through this process, he became more sympathetic to the Seminoles and published a book on the Seminole War that's, from what I have read, is still one of the best descriptions of what occurred. But after all of that happened, in 1858, he took a leave of absence to work at the Fort Fillmore Silver Mining Company, which is located in Doña Ana County. And I actually have the document here with me. It has been sort of rebound and
Oh, nice.
a bit of mylar as well, so it's kind of shiny. But this is what it actually looks like, and it's labeled as a memoir, and it really does read like that. He kind of lists all the different minerals and things found, what they did with them, where they shipped them. And he worked there until 1861. And from what I can tell, I think it proved to be a very successful leave of absence. So
Good for him. Is it the memoir of the Stevenson silver mine? Is that what it says on the front?
yes, I believe so.
Cool.
I pulled this from the vault. These are actual documents from the 1880s, and they are enclosed in location notices, proofs of labor, and mine claims from the 1880s. And they're so delicate, I don't even want to scan them in. So maybe
Can I see
Jacob
this?
can take
I'll
pictures
just
of
take
them.
Pictures of them, yeah.
Yeah, but
This is from Isidoro Armijo, probate
Armijo.
clerk. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
we'll show that one. It's very sensitive documents, but how cool.
our next episode was with Robust Election, who we work very, very close with, and that featured David, the CEO and founder of Robust Elections.
Yeah, and that was another episode that Caroline and our election supervisor Janice actually did, and I think it was so great just getting to hear from somebody that's so important in our elections.
Right. They are innovators. They are always looking to innovate. What can they do for the next election, and how could they make the election process easier and simpler, not just for our office, but for our community members who are election officials.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about earlier just how poll books used to be, all handwritten and everything.
Right.
So obviously they've innovated ways to get poll books electronically and make sure there's less human error and all that stuff. So it was really cool to see how they've innovated the industry.
Yeah, and they're still going, and they're still working on stuff. So here's a clip from that episode right here.
So getting back to Robust and Ask Ed, you all do some really fun things, and one of those that we've currently been working on, and it's still being kind of honed, and we're still doing testing on it, and that is the hand tallying system. Now, I want Janice to go ahead and kind of describe this from our end, and then I would love for David to kind of describe from their end.
Normally for hand tallying, which are ballots that couldn't be read by the tabulator, we would have a physical hand tally sheet, and we would have to go through each ballot one by one and mark down what the voters' vote was on their ballot. It kind of lends to human error. Not only did we have to mark it down by hand on the tally sheet, we had to then enter it by hand into our election system. Sometimes numbers get transposed, whatever the case may be. We always find it, but
whenever humans are involved, there's human errors.
Yeah. This tally system we got the chance to use last election for the local election. I thought it was amazing. We're still entering votes, but it's kind of like, I don't want to say, it kind of looks like you're actually electronically voting on a ballot. And then there are checks and balances, like one person is marking the ballot electronically, I say. And then it goes to another person of another party that has to then go in and check your work. If your work isn't matching what they see on the ballot, then it goes back to you and you have to fix it. So and then it gets automatically, well, not automatically, but there's an upload that you can use to put it into the election system so that you're not typing in numbers and transposing. And so I thought it was awesome. It took us down from a whole list of these are errors that you need to go in and figure out what happened on your hand tallies to, I think we had one, and that was
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, David, I know I mentioned this before, we're testing, but what did you all, because you all developed this this great program, and of course we're still testing it, but from your side of the table, what are you all seeing?
I guess I have to back up a little bit and say this is the fun part of what we do. So we're innovators. So we developed the first product that allowed disabled voters to vote, the Automark. We are the first ones that developed the reconciliation process that you guys use. That came from working in Bernalillo and going, wait, there's got to be a better way. So we developed that. That took Bernalillo's canvas from 2 weeks down to 2 days.
Wow.
And that kind of innovation has been really fun. We're constantly coming out with, we have an online training product and a materials tracker and all these different apps and things. And this latest one, which was really fun, was working with another county about how do we improve that hand tally process from being these spreadsheets or just literal physical sheets that you check mark.
All right, so episode 16 was Ballots and Beyond, and that was our first 2026 primary election update. I love doing episodes about the election because I think it's just so important to get the information out. We talked 100%. About how primaries now work in New Mexico and independents can now participate. So it was really cool to do this episode. And then I think we did another primary election update episode, which we just gave more information, but I think it's so necessary.
And then our final 2 episodes. Episode 18 was another election, but our final 2 were Trinity Site featuring Jim Eccles.
People absolutely love Mr. Jim Eccles, and I think he's so cool when he comes on because he's so like passionate about the Trinity Site.
He led us through beginning to end of the Trinity Site.
Yeah.
And the Manhattan Project and how they chose over here in White Sands Missile Range to test the first atomic bomb.
Fascinating topic. So it was great to hear him and hear what he had learned from his job at the Trinity Site or at the White Sands Missile Range. So it's awesome.
So as much as those 2 podcasts were full of amazing clips and information, here is one clip from that episode.
And so the scientists said, we got to have a test.
Right.
And they convinced Groves to do that. And he green-lighted it in 1944. And then they started looking around for a place. Now, I've got a slide with Ken Bainbridge in it. Ken Bainbridge was the test director. He's the guy that coordinated everything and made it happen. It wasn't Oppenheimer. He was busy at Los Alamos. And so Bainbridge and his crew looked at different places to actually do the test. It included the lava fields up by Grants, an island off the coast of California, the Desert Training Center in the deserts of California, Padre Island, the sand area off the coast of Texas, the sand dunes up in southern Colorado, and a couple of places in what was then the Alamogordo bombing range, which is now White Sands Missile Range. So they looked at the southern part and the northern part, and they finally decided on the north end of the old bombing range, and they got permission to use it. That was put off limits to the bombers, test B-17s and stuff that were training. And so they got a rectangular piece of land up there, and then the first thing they had to do was go in and decide where ground zero is going to be, because everything else at the site depends on where ground zero is, because you have to have safe distances. You want people to be upwind, not downwind, et cetera, et cetera. So on that slide, there's a picture of the tower that was erected at ground zero. It's 100 feet tall, and that's where the bomb is going to be placed to explode, so you get an aerial explosion and not an explosion on the ground.
Well, that being said, that is it for this episode of Preserving History and Democracy. I want to thank our special guests for joining us this season. I also want to thank our viewers and listeners.
Yes,
big shout out to Jacob Slaughter, who's usually behind cameras. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Make sure to listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on our social media pages. My name is Cynthia Diaz, and I'll see you next time.